Greetings, family. Welcome to another episode of Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. In this episode, we're going to be addressing a critical question. Is America being ripped off by the rest of the world? That is the narrative that's been pushing through the media by the Trump administration and many of those oligarchs that surround him. They are claiming that the world is taking advantage of America. But let's look at the facts. Let's look at the history of America, and we're going to examine who is taking advantage of the rest of the world. Is the world really taking advantage or ripping off America, or is America ripping off the rest of the world? Let's examine the facts. Now, I think it's appropriate that we begin with the history of America. If you look at how America was established, my people, remember, let's not have amnesia. Let's not have selective memory. Let's not pretend that we don't know how America was established. America was established as a criminal enterprise. It was established through genocide, brutality, domination, stolen land, every manner of evil you can think of, enslavement, colonization, all that was used and done to establish America. America grew through hundreds of years of free labor, exploitation of African people to build America, the genocide of native people, and the exploitation of their own white working class to build America. So let's get that straight. America emerged in the 1900s as one of the dominant economy because so many of the primary wealth that was developed in America was developed on the backs of free labor. So they was able to make a massive economic gain over the centuries. And after World War II, America became the dominant economic power on the planet, was able to manufacture goods to help to rebuild back Europe and other places. And as America, capitalist class began to develop and begin to expand and begin to explore more ways of maximizing their profit, as they begin to look for more and more opportunity, how to squeeze out of the economy as much profit as possible, they began to move international, move global. So in the 50s and 60s, there's a shift towards finding cheaper labor, cheaper resources to manufacture goods. And America done that. They went to seek cheaper markets and they manufactured the goods at very cheap costs. And then they shipped the goods into America and then they would mark up the price, exorbitant, astronomical markup on the price of simple goods and sell it to the American consumer and make all-time high, record-breaking profits they would be making year in and year out. For decades, this has been going on, where the American economy has been booming based on this simple formula: produce cheap and sell high. And that is the formula that they use. And America, as a result, has been one of the greatest beneficiary of the economic expansion that have taken place globally in the last 75 years, particularly in the last 50 years, where we have seen wealth increase. I mean, from 2020 to 2025, I think the wealth have increased in the world by $125 trillion. Right now, America holds up to 30% of the global wealth that's available on this planet. And America is only 4% of the global population, yet America have access, have ownership of 20% of the 30% of the global wealth that is available, as disproportionate to its population. But through the years, America have grown militarily and economically because of their dominant position. They was able to write the rules. Most of the international agreements, most of the the corporations of nations, America fingerprint stamp influence have been written into all these international agreements to benefit primarily the United States and also Europe. They were the biggest beneficiary of global accords, global agreements, international agreements, especially on tariffs, on trade, on economic policies. America has been, and Europe have been the greatest beneficiaries of this global order. They practically wrote the rules to benefit themselves. And the global south had been at a disadvantage because the game had been rigged against the global south. And now, after all of this, they wrote the rules, they benefited from the rules. The facts shows that America has been the greatest beneficiary of the last 50 years of the global production, the global economy. And now they're coming with this false narrative that we can say with conviction, with certainty, that it is a false notion that America has been ripped off by the rest of the world, that the rest of the world is ripping off America. There is no factual basis for that argument and for that claim. And therefore, I reject that argument because when you look at the American economy, particularly the economy under capitalist standard, American economy was doing excellent, was a stable economy. They had almost full employment. I think the employment rate was about 96%. That means the unemployment rate was about 4 point something percent of unemployment. Under capitalism, that is considered to be outstanding. Okay, they also had all-time high with the S&P 500, which are the 500 most biggest, most profitable companies in America. All-time high. The Nasdaq, which is the technology stocks and technology companies, all-time high. The financial class in America, all-time high, record-breaking profit. So the ruling class was doing good. The American economy as a whole was doing good. So there was no basis to claim that the American economy were being taken advantage of. And when you look further at the statistics, do you see that 98% of the wealth in America is concentrated in the hands of the top ruling class, the top capitalist class in America? That is where the bulk of the wealth is maintained. 98% of it is in the top half of the ruling class in America. And the bottom half of America have to compete for 2 to 3% of the wealth that is available in America. This is the core of the problem with America, is the inequality problem. And that you got these type of people in America right now with this idiotic, nonsensical thinking that somehow the problem in America is the world is ripping off America. Somehow there's something wrong with everybody else, but they refuse to look inward to see the inherent problems with capitalism in America, the inherent challenge of capitalism, of inequality, of domination, because they refuse to look at sharing the wealth of America. They don't want to share the wealth. And that is the crux of the problem with American economy. The wealth is concentrated in the hands of the few, and they refuse to distribute the wealth amongst the American people. So when the American people are feeling it, when they're suffering, they want to blame foreigners. They want to blame the rest of the world. They want to find all these issues to win political power so they can push this false narrative on the rest of the world, willing to wreck the whole world economy, throw this tantrum about this unfair treatment. And in reality, there's none. It is ideologically driven. A lot of this is driven by this notion of white supremacy, white domination. America should be a dominant power. And America has the most powerful military in the world, by far. America outspent the whole world combined together when it comes to military power. So where is the lack of dominance? Where is the decline in American power? What they're talking about when they say in the decline is they're looking at the influence of America. That now that the whole world is growing, somehow America is losing its power because other people are coming up, therefore America must be coming down. The idea is that America keep going up and the rest of the world keep going down. That is how they see this thing, that they should be the dominant power. They should make the 98% of the wealth in the world. They're not contented with 30% of the wealth, even though they're only 4% of the world population. For instance, if you look at China, China have about, if you look at Eastern Asia as a whole, they have probably about 20% of the world population. Yet they only have about 18% of the wealth in the world. And that is just about right. You know what I'm saying? If you look at it from a global perspective, and if you look at Europe, for instance, Europe and America is disproportionately holding the wealth of this world. Europe and America combined together have a combined population of 14% of the world population. I think Europe have about 9% of the world population. Yet Europe have about 23% of the global wealth. If you combine that with America, 30%, that means Europe and America, with only 13% of the population, they control and own over 53% of the global wealth. So the economic order have been in favor of America and and Europe and Western Europe, because these are the nations. If you notice what all these nations have in common, they have been deeply involved in the enslavement of humanity, enslavement of African people, deeply involved in colonization of the world, deeply involved in genociding people, dominating people over the last 500 years. It is no coincidence that they emerge as the dominant economies of the world while the rest of the world is trying to play catch up. It's because of the domination and the resources of the rest of the world was extracted, particularly from Africa and Central America and in many parts of Asia. They have extracted that wealth, bring it into America and Europe, process and manufacture it, and then sell it back to the world. But one of the things that they never expected, though, was the rise of China. China is throwing a wrench into this whole Western domination, is that China has been able to take control of their resources, focus on manufacturing, focus on science and technology, and competing with them at all levels. And at the same time, China is able to grow the population, elevate their people economically. The middle class in China alone is bigger than the entire United States of America in terms of population. They have taken hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and given them a better life. America don't want that. They don't want the rest of the world to rise and to be successful. They want to be dominant, and everybody come and beg America and Donald Trump to come and kiss their bum, kisses, his shit. You know what I'm saying? That is what he wants. You to bow down and the world to come and worship them as if we're back in some medieval days where America is supposed to be this big fortress and everybody is isolated in their own little fortress, and then we shoot it out and we have it out like that, and it's some medieval perception of the world that it has no basis in modern economy. It has no basis with the facts when we examine the facts of living in this global world. America want to have it all. They want to be able to be the dominant force, even though they're only 4% of the population. They don't believe in fairness. They don't believe in justice. America has no God-given right. America have no inalienable right to dominate the world. I don't know what give them that audacity to think that they are the one who've been ordained to dominate the world. The world is a plural world. It's a world of multicultural world where there's going to be a diversity in this world, and they don't like diversity. They don't like equality. You can see by their policy. They tell you we are opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. America don't want the rest of the world to the world to be diverse. They want the world to be white, Anglo-Saxon, and Christians, and dominant. That is the dominant value system that they want in the world, particularly in America. That's what they want. They don't want no other counter argument. They don't want no counter interpretation of reality. They don't want no other type of system to dominate or any other value. Only their value should dominate. This is the arrogancy of it all. They don't want inclusion. And they say, in this global economy, America don't want to include anyone else. They don't want nobody else to be included in the benefit and the development of this world. You know what I'm saying? They don't want it. Diversity, equity. Equity mean that we are equal on the world stage. Where America is an equal member of the United Nations, where we all can decide on the future of this world and the future development of everybody. America don't want that. They want a lopsided development where you there begging for crumbs and they're here on the top enjoying the bulk of the productivity of humanity. They want access to all your resources, and you must be a consumer. And see, that is one of the things. America economy is basically a consumer economy. It's a service-oriented economy. When you look at it, 70% of the economy service is and finance. It's a consumer-based economy. They don't like that. They want to be able to produce and everybody else to consume what they're producing. But that's not the world we're living in. Because one of the issue with that argument is that America produce product at a high cost. The expense of production in America is way above the rest of the production around the world, particularly in China and Africa and Latin America. The cost of goods is way high and you can get better quality for cheaper price. So why would anyone want to buy something that's inferior in quality or and also more valuable, more costly? And you can get superior quality with low cost. Naturally, intelligent person, intelligent economy, an intelligent consumer base would buy the best product, the best quality for the cheapest price. But America is not talking about let's having a fair economic order where everybody can just have the right to choose, everybody have a right to buy and sell what they want. That's not what they're advocating. They're not advocating for laissez-faire capitalism or free market capitalism. They don't want free market because on a free market, America product will not sell because it's too expensive. And then you got competition now who are coming with better design, with better quality, cost efficient, more economically efficient, and as well as cheaper than what the Americans have to offer. So the consumer, if you wouldn't let the consumer decide, let the consumer decide what to choose. You present to the market what you have. Let everybody else present to the market what they have, and let's have it out in the marketplace, as they would say under capitalism. This is the classical capitalist argument over the years that you should let the market decide. Let market force decide, what should be produced and how much things should cost, and the consumer will choose. So why now they're talking about unfair? Why now they're talking about being ripped off? When that's the philosophy they preach, that's what they taught in all economic school. All economists on a capitalist system preach this free market enterprise. Let the market force decide. But all of a sudden, you got this group in power under the Trump administration, this oligarchy, this capitalist ruling class, are now singing a different tune, advocating for a different type of capitalism, where we have a government protected capitalism, where now you want to punish another country because they're producing more higher quality and cheaper price product than you are producing. And it's your greedy capitalists who went over to these countries and also make deals with them to set up their factories and plants in those countries. And it is your capitalist class that goes and hide their profit in countries that have, what you call it, low tax on their profit. And they shield and avoid paying taxes to the American government. It is the capitalist class in America that is responsible for these manipulation. Because they want to maintain their profit margin. They want to maintain this exorbitant profit margin that they've been getting year in and year out. And now they're dependent on this inflated arrangement where they're buying the goods and they're producing the goods at so cheap price, and then they're marking it up. So now when the consumer become aware of this, it's going to cause chaos in the economy. Because how you hear preaching about let people decide, and when you're the one who distorting the global economy. Because even the goods them that are available to the American population right now should be much cheaper than they are. Because they've been produced at a fraction of the cost that they're being sold for right now in America. And that is what the global world economy now, the people of the world are becoming more aware of this manipulation. And it's been done primarily by the capitalist class in America. The American capitalist class has been the main architect of this type of economic model, where they go and set up their operation and their production offshore, and they make the consumer goods and they ship it into America, and then they mark it up at such a high cost to the consumer, and they sell it into them and make big profit. And it's been working well. So even now, with this Trump administration, it is going to mess up a lot of these capitalists in America game, because I don't know, he's trying to create policy to help them, but he's going to hurt a lot of them in the process. But he's misguided with this type of way he's going about this tariff war that he's unleashing on the world. It is going to, I mean, most senior capitalist economists, most knowledgeable, most trusted um, capitalist economists predicting that it's going to cause chaos. It's going to cause maybe an economic recession. Some people are even speculating about stagflation and even depression, because these kind of policy is like a wrecking ball onto the economy, the global economy, particularly the American economy. Because the idea of suddenly changing and moving production to America and then produce the goods in America, and then, according to what they're saying as well, most of the economies, the goods in America are cheap. Even with the big markup that they're getting, they're putting on the goods, they're still cheap. But if they was to produce those same goods in America and sell them to the American people, and if they will have to produce it, they're currently producing them in the East, either they're going to produce them at that same rate, or they will have to find a way to bring down the cost of production. Now, in America, labor cost is far more expensive than in the eastern part of the world, and even in Africa and in many places. The American worker is used to a certain high level of wages. I'm saying, even though it is still low, because most Americans will tell you that they believe it should be $15 or $20 as the minimum rate, as the minimum wage. It's still low, but that is high comparable to the rest of the world. And for the capitalist class, that is a high piece of cost and expense that they do not want. And they do not want to have to pay more for the resources, because many of the resources that they require for production, they will have to get it from the rest of the world if they cannot find it in America. And that will cost more, because you got to ship it in and all that. Then you got to look at how long it's going to take for all this to take place. And then, as I suspect, the new economy will not be based on workers. It will be based on robotics and AI. That is my suspicion. And for them to maintain that profit that they currently have or go higher, they will have to produce the same goods at cheaper cost and sell it at the exorbitant price that they're selling it for right now, in order to maintain this high level of profit. So we're going to watch and see how that's going to turn out on that front. But the main essential part of this argument is that the notion, the claim that America is being ripped off is a false claim. It's not borne out by reality. There is no data, there is no factual basis for that claim that America is being ripped off by the rest of the world. It is a narrative that's pushed by the far right in America, by the white supremacists of America, by the oligarchy, the greedy capitalists who want to get more and more profit. And now, with this political ideology of Donald Trump, this almost infantile economic model that he's coming with, that no credible economist can make sense of, it doesn't make any sense, will cause great problem for the American economy, according to the projection, according to the observers of the economy. And now I'm saying now, as African people, while we can look at that argument that they're making, and we can clearly counter it with facts, we can clearly counter it with reality. We can look back at history and see, and as I was summarized here, we can look back on history and see how the American and the Western nation was established based on oppression, based on exploitation, based on enslavement and colonization and genocide. That's how they have built the primary wealth of the Western world. And then we have seen how they have grown tremendously after the Industrial Revolution, and especially after World War II. America emerged as the dominant power, militarily and economically. And then you can see how the capitalist class in America and in the West decided to shift their production towards Asia, towards China, towards Korea, towards Japan, towards other areas in the Eastern world, and for cheaper production costs, and bring the goods back into America, sell it at a very high price to the American consumers. That is the reality. And America has record-breaking profit, all-time high. All the indices show that America is doing very well under capitalist standard. So there is no basis for this false narrative that they're pushing, this fear-mongering narrative to whip up this xenophobia in the population, to get people riled up. It's a political ploy by this unprincipled leadership that's in America right now. This principle is vindictive, this bitterness that they're pushing, this attack on people. They don't believe in sharing the wealth. They don't believe in diversity. They don't believe in equity with everybody else. They don't believe in inclusion. It's all protectionist, isolationist, narrow, racist view of the world. And those views are outdated. They're outdated with the founders of America, with the long history of America. Those are the ingrained thinking. And the world is moving away from those type of thinking. But they want to hold on to it. And they want to drag everybody into it. And particularly black people in America, we have to understand that they will be coming to help to destroy black progress that black people have made over the decades in America, over the last couple of decades. That is what is manifesting right now. You're going to see a lot of that attack on black people, particularly in America, because they do not want no diversity. Diversity means, in their mind, it means sharing the wealth. They don't want to share the wealth. They don't want to share the power. They don't want to share opportunities in America with anybody else. They feel that they are the primary beneficiary of the American system and should be that way. And this is what they're trying to carve out for the rest of the American population and for white people in America. To lay a foundation where they will be dominant. Their values will prevail in American society. They don't want to share the wealth. And that's one thing you have to keep in mind. Notice that part. They do not want to share the wealth. So it is incumbent on us to keep pointing out the fallacy of these people, and to know that the world is rejecting those narrow view of the world. The American people are rejecting that narrow view. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are still uneducated, that's still asleep, that still get caught up in this narrow, this political ploy, this demonization of foreigners, this xenophobic attack on the world. So they are able to get a lot of political support from people who are less educated or less informed about the world, less informed about their history, and are just caught up in this emotionalism, this emotional nationalism, extreme nationalism that they're pushing to gain political power and to reshape America in their image. And not once will they, and trust me, they do not want to acknowledge the enslavement in America, the genocide in America, the stolen of land in America. That's not the narrative that they want to hear. They want to hear a narrative of America the beautiful, the land of the free, the home of the brave, justice, equality, and it's none of that. Which has been torture and hell for African people in American history and for Native American people. They do not want this narrative to be pushed in America about the real reality of American history. And this group of people that's in power now, they represent that backward view. They want to go back where the rest of the world want to go forward. I just wanted to come on the record and just like that out there that this whole notion that they're pushing is false. It's a false notion, and we cannot allow ourselves to be pulled into this narrative. We need to focus on being self-reliant, and we need to open up free trade amongst ourselves as African people. We need to look out for ourselves. We need to build our own economic base, we need to modernize our infrastructure. We need to modernize our ports. We need to modernize our airports and seaports and our roads and in our technological infrastructure. And we need to consume what we produce. It is the way forward, because we cannot allow ourselves to become a victim or become dependent on one country or one man or one individual to come and wreck our economy and wreck our lives. Unfortunately, many of our countries are very small, and some of our countries are dependent on tourism, and what they do can have a tremendous effect on our situation because we have become vulnerable. We have to get ourselves out of this vulnerable position. We have to move toward more self-reliant. At least we need to have food security where we produce our own food. Nobody can starve us into submission. We don't want a situation like that. We need to produce our own clothes. At the very minimum, we can produce clothes, because textile is not a difficult thing to do. Okay, we are very creative people. We can design all kind of stuff. We got a long history of African inspiration to push our cultural, where we can wear our culture. So we need to focus on our own domestic production and our own regional trade amongst each other for benefit of our African people and non-European people around the world. We have to pull together. The global South have to pull together now and stand strong while we counter the narrative. We focus on building our own economy. So my people, I just wanted to bring that narrative to you. I just wanted to come and counter this false narrative that they're pushing. America is not being ripped off by the rest of the world. In fact, America has been ripping off the rest of the world. America has been taking disadvantage of the rest of the world. If you look at the statistics and a global population, America is only 4% of the population, yet America is holding over 30% of the wealth in the world. That is totally disproportionate, and they still not satisfied. It's like they want to get 70 to 80 or 90% of the global wealth. Everybody must be under their footstool. That is the reality. And the global South have very little of the wealth in this world. And yet still, America still complaining, still pushing these false narratives. My people, be informed. Stay tuned to this broadcast. We have more clear thinking coming forward to you. If you like this kind of analysis, if you agree with this kind of analysis, and you want to hear more of this kind of analysis, do subscribe to this program and allow this broadcast to grow. And I invite you back for another episode of Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. Thank you very much, my people. Walk good.